I love debating volleyball. I love it. If you're a member of the Volleyball Source Discord, you already know this. You've seen me get into spicy conversations time and time again. So when I recently asked the community who their top 10 setters in men's volleyball were, things got a little heated. Things got a little bit spicy. People were coming out of the woodworks to give me their opinion. And now, originally, I wanted to make a top 10 setters video. And to be honest, it just seemed like too much work. It was way too hard to narrow it down to just 10 setters. So instead, today, I will be ranking all of the best setters in men's volleyball. As always, I will be using the Ronnie Cuban Spike tier list to do my rankings, and they go as such: ultra, super, hyper, mega, and thanks for participating. Why he's done it like this, we will never know, but it is a meme that will forever live on in the Volleyball Source universe. Now, before we get started, there is a couple things to note about this tier list and about this process. I think it goes without saying that if you or your favorite player are featured on this list, I'm considering you one of the best setters in the world. And that means they are among the elite of the elite in the sport of volleyball. If your favorite player is ranked lower or isn't featured, just remember this is for fun, okay? You're more than welcome to let me know in the comments where I went wrong or who I forgot. And second of all, this is my list and my list alone, okay? This is not supposed to be a be-all, end-all list for setters in volleyball. This is my own list. So if you don't agree with it, once again, let me know in the comments. I've also linked down below the tier list maker link so that you can go and do the list yourself, okay? And then afterwards, you could post it over on the Volleyball Source Discord. I'm going to be ranking these players based off specific criteria: skill, hands, ball location, the offense they run, and also how much they win. I think that's a really important thing to consider when talking about the best players in any given position or any given sport. And last thing before we get started, I want you to give this video a like because it really helps me out. And then also considering joining us over at the Volleyball Source Discord. It costs nothing, and you can take a part of conversations and debates like this all the time with the best online volleyball community in the world. So let's get started. So all of these players are sorted alphabetically, and I'm just going to go through from A to Y all the way through. And starting off, we have Konstantin Abayv out of Russia, currently setting for Zenit Kazan. And I really like Abayv. He's had a couple of really good seasons, helped lead Zenit Kazan to the finals this year, was great with Verona last year. And I think he's super solid. He makes good decisions. He's got great location. He's got a solid flow to his offense. He just goes out there and does his job well on a regular basis. So we're going to start off with Abayv into the hyper tier. Okay, right there in the middle, just to get things kicked off nicely. Next up, we have Mattia Bonfonte out of Italy. And now he has done some really special things with Lube over the past couple of seasons, led them to back-to-back Scudetto finals, and it's really been impressive. However, there's some ups and downs to his game. When he's on, Bonfonte runs a really good offense and has pretty good location, but when he is off, he can be really bad. And some of the times we've seen Lube be bad this season has been because Bonfonte's location especially has just been all over the place, and his decision-making kind of becomes a one-way street to just setting one player. So because of this, I'm going to put Bonfonte in the mega tier. Next, we have France's Antoine Pazar, and I think you could already know where I'm going to put him. He's one of the most creative setters in the game. He's one of the most physical guys we have out there. He's a two-time Olympic gold medalist. This is a guy who just oozes excellence. I love watching him set. He's got strong hands, he's got good location, and he runs an offense really, really well. And he can just be a rock in stormy seas with really calm demeanor. So Pazar, to me, is one of the most elite setters in the game, and I can hands down say that he is one of the top 3 setters in the world. So we're going to put him in the ultra tier. Now we have an absolute all-time great, one of the best winners and leaders, bar none, in the sport of volleyball, but he is kind of on the other side of his career. And at 39 years old, Bruno Rezende is no longer what he once was. He's still a guy who is one of the hardest workers in volleyball, who knows how to make everyone around him better, and he will go down as one of the best winners of all time, leading a golden generation for Brazil. But as I said, he is a little bit downhill, and we've seen that decline a little bit over the years. And because of that, as much as it hurts me to do this, this is a list about now and only now. It doesn't take into account what you've done in the past. If you're not one of the best right now, I can't consider you one of the best. So because of that, I'm actually going to put Bruno in the mega tier, and I can already hear the Brazilians getting mad at me. But once again, this is just my thoughts. From one Brazilian to another, next up we have Cachopa. And Cachopa, or Fernando Kreling, as his actual name is, but we're going to refer to him as Cachopa. Cachopa is very interesting because when he is at his best, he is absolutely elite. And he is a magician with the ball. He is a guy who knows how to hide his sets, who runs a pinpoint offense. And when he's in system, he is absolutely deadly. And when things are going well for him, things are going really well. Look at Monza back in 23-24 and the season they had then. But on the other side of it, when things aren't going well, he can be a bit of a cancer. He's not a guy who is that physical or all that fast. So getting to out of system balls or playing physically at the net isn't really part of his game. And we could really see that the way he played for Monza the next season in 24 and 25. Now, he had a really good year for Milano this year, and I still think he is one of the elite setters in the game, especially when he's with Brazil. So I'm going to put Cachopa in the super tier, in the A tier. Now we have another one of the elite guys in the world, and I've been fortunate enough to watch Michael Christensen set since he was a teenager, and he has continued to impress me. I've always said that volleyball is a mix of science and art, and Micah sits really in between both of them. He's a guy who knows how to run the offense super well, who knows the technical and tactical sides of the game, but he just does it with this flow and flair that is rarely seen at high levels of volleyball. He is a guy that every single time he gets put on the court, he makes everyone around him better. He's coming off another really strong season with Verona, and I'm really excited to see what he does with the U.S. national team this year, moving into 2028, where he's going to be hosting a home Olympics where he played his college ball. I don't think it's a debate that right now he's a top 3 setter in the world, and that you can make a strong argument that he is the best setter in the world right now. So because of this, obviously, Micah Christensen is going into the ultra tier. Now we have another all-time great who's just on the other side of the hill. Had I made this list last year or the year before, Deco would have been in the ultra tier. This is a guy who has been honestly my favorite setter ever getting to watch him play. And I know because he's killed Canada so many times, but watching him is poetry in motion. It's watching a jazz guitarist at its best. I just said that I think volleyball is a mix of science and art. Deco is pure art. He makes sets that I didn't think were possible, and he does it with such flair. There's so many times where getting to watch him in person, I was just in awe of what he was able to do. However, it has kind of fallen off a little bit, and this season was not pretty as he was setting for a Czestochowa team that ended up getting relegated in the Plus Liga. I didn't really expect to see that coming, but because of that and how he looks right now at 37 years old, or he's clearly going down that hill pretty quickly, I'm going to put him next to Bruno, which is pretty fitting, in the mega tier. Now we have a veteran journeyman who I think is really underrated. Stijn de Hulst from Belgium is one of those guys who just shows up and competes. He's a guy who's always going to make his team better and really knows how to run an offense. And I mean, we've seen it what he's done with Roeselare the past few years in the Champions League, and really got to see how good he actually was at the World Championships for Belgium this past year. So I'm excited that he's going to be competing at the VNL this year. We're going to get to see a lot more of him, and I think Belgium is super lucky to have him. Now, I may get some flack for this, especially after the glowing review I just gave him, but I'm going to put de Hulst in the mega tier beside Deco and Bruno. I'll be honest, Matoki Airo is a guy that I've never really understood the hype about. I remember a few years ago when he was really starting to come up, and I saw some videos and I was like, that's it, right? He's a guy who has decent hands, but they're not fantastic. He doesn't deliver the ball particularly well. He doesn't really have a sense for the rhythm of his team, and he just runs a bit of a clunky offense. And I think that really came to show for Japan at the World Championships last year when they failed to get out of the pool. I know the reception wasn't quite there, but I really wasn't impressed by Airo that entire time. And for that, I'm going to put Airo in the thanks for participating tier. So have a cookie on your way out. Next up, we have our first Canadian, and Max Elgurt is a guy that I've watched play for a long time, and he's continued to surpass my expectations. He's a guy who just runs a steady offense and thinks the game so well, which kind of makes sense coming out of that Alberta program. And every single time I've thought he's plateaued, he's taken another step forward. And I'm really excited to see what he can continue to do for the Maple Volleys. And he also is coming off a pretty good season, albeit some injuries for Plessis Robinson in the French league. So I'm going to be putting Max Elgurt in the mega tier right beside Stindhaus. Next, we have our first Polish setter on the list, Jan Fearle. And Fearle is a guy who is a classic example for me of a Polish setter. He just goes out there and does his job. He makes good decisions. He delivers the ball well. He limits the mistake and just overall helps lead his team. He's not a guy who's going to go out there and win you a game by flashy setting or running an incredibly complex offense, but he's not a guy who's really going to hurt you either. So for me, I think Jan Fearle, especially with all of the success he's had recently for Warszawa and his role he's playing on the national team, I'm putting Fearle in the hyper tier. Now we have one of the best leaders of a generation, and I don't think it's a pop to say that Simone Giannelli reminds me of the Tom Brady of volleyball. He just keeps winning. He's not even 30 years old yet, and he's basically already won everything in volleyball. The only thing he's really missing is Olympic gold, which he already has a silver, and the VNL, which kind of doesn't really matter. Other than that, he's won absolutely everything. He's one of the best leaders in the sport. He's a fantastic setter, and he's just a guy who knows what to do at the right times. He runs a super smart offense at all times. He's a fantastic tactical blocker. He's a guy who can go off from the baseline. Japan knows about this from the Olympics in 2024. He plays fantastic defense. He can be a threat up at the net. He's really going to go down, in my opinion, as one of the best, or maybe the best all-around setter in the history of volleyball. And I think we're really lucky the fact that we get to watch him set right now. And to me, once again, he's one of the elite guys in the game. He's one of the top 3 setters in the game, and there's nowhere to put him other than in the ultra tier with Christensen and Pazar. Now, I know you're already going to say I'm biased. And you know what? I am, and I don't really care. But I honestly think Luke Kerr is one of the most underrated setters in volleyball. The setter's job is to put their hitters in perfect positions. And what Luke Kerr does better than almost any other setter I've seen is to just give the ball perfectly to the hitter as they want it. And that's such a crazily underrated skill in an era where separating guys and getting one-on-ones is always what people value. I think Herr has done an incredible job of that, and he really helped elevate Canada and push them to get to the Olympics in 2024 when realistically no one really expected us to. He's a great athlete who's solid in all phases of the game. He can serve, he can block, he can track down balls, set out of system, set in system. He does quite a bit. And honestly, if he wasn't Canadian, I think he'd be playing in bigger leagues. This is a guy who's a consistent leader on the court, and he's always got a positive attitude out there. So once again, I know you're going to call me biased, but I'm going to put Luke Herr in the hyper tier. Deal with it. Now we're at Quinn Isacson, and I don't think it's a surprise that I love watching Quinn Isacson play. If you've watched my podcast with him, this is a guy who he's just a winner. Like, volleyball is a game of patterns, and the pattern of Quinn Isacson is clear and consistent. He comes into a team, helps them overachieve, and then they're left in shambles after he leaves. That's what happened to Saint Nazaire. That's what happened to Norva Czestochowa as well. This is a guy people continuously underestimate. And I think he has really good location. He's got strong hands. He's so smart and knows how to run an offense. But ultimately, I think he's just a really good leader and knows what it takes to win. And that's why he continues to overachieve, as some might say, wherever he goes. So for that, I'm going to put Quinn Isacson in the hyper tier. Next up is another classic Polish setters. And I think there's honestly this theme with Polish setters where they make good decisions, they deliver the ball well, they're not super flashy, and they just let their hitters go to work. But Marcinos is a guy who knows how to be winner. He's won the Champions League, he's won European championships, he's won world championships as well. This is a guy who is the cream of the crop of Polish setting for a long time. And it's really too bad about his liver fibrosis, because this is a guy who I would have expected to set Poland into 2028. And you could also kind of see how it's affecting him. I still think he's incredibly elite. He's a guy who stayed calm in the storm and is able to think his way through a match and run a fantastic offense. But he's just definitely taken a step back from what he used to be. But that being said, I'm putting Marcinos in the hyper tier. And from the former starting Polish setter to the current starting Polish setter, I don't think anyone's stock has risen as much in volleyball, especially among setters, as Marcin Komenda in the past couple of seasons. This is a guy who went from being a mid-level Polish setter to being a Plus Liga champion and the starter for the Polish national team. And I honestly think it's well-deserved. Komenda, once again, delivers the ball well, doesn't really make any mistakes. He can run quite a varied offense as well, depending on, who he's working with and the personnel on the court. But I think he's just a really strong competitor who works extremely hard both on and off the court for his team. So for me, and all of the success he's had in recent seasons with Lublin and as well as the Polish national team, I'm putting Komenda in the super tier. I honestly think Maha is one of the best all-around volleyball players in the world. I honestly think you could put him on the left side for a lot of professional teams and they wouldn't miss a beat. But he's an all-around volleyball player who's also a really, really good setter. And we've kind of seen this time and time again. He's an exceptional athlete, and his athleticism and his general knowledge of the game and game experience at so many different levels really allows him to do a lot of things other setters. And from watching him at UCLA to watching him in the Plus Liga and then the Turkish League and now the Russian League, I still love watching Maha set. I love watching him set with the U.S. national team as well. And I think he's just an all-around solid setter who you can be dependent on to help get you wins at any time. So because of that, Maha is going in the hyper tier. Now, if you can look at the setters who we have coming up next, you know that we're getting into an elite lineup of setters. And who better to start that off with than the wonder kid himself, Moni Nikolov. And it's not a pop to say Moni Nikolov is an absolute generational talent. To do what he did in 2025, win the NCAA, be the player of the year, and then go on and lead Bulgaria to the finals of the World Championships has never been done before, and I don't think will be done before. It was absolutely incredible to watch. And, we have the discussion about him quite a bit in the Discord of whether he is a really good setter or he's just physically dominant. And there's no doubt he's physically dominant, right? At like 209 centimeters, he's like, 6'10", 6'11". He can crush balls both at the net and from the baseline, which always makes him an offensive threat in the front row. He is one of the best blockers in the world already, and he just has the poise to be an absolute champion. But I honestly think Nikolov's setting is elite. He has very good hands that are only going to get better. You can tell they're still a little too big for his body and that he's growing into them a little bit, which is crazy to think about. But he also just has that poise and that presence of mind to run a fantastic offense, right? Bulgaria doesn't get to the finals if he doesn't understand how to run that offense. Same thing with Novosibirsk this year. In his first year in the Russian league, which is an incredibly hard league to play in, he's able to lead them all the way to Game 5 against Zenit Kazan in the semifinals without arguably their best player in Sam Daru being out most of the year due to cancer treatments. And before Daru is out, this was a team that was really vying for that championship in Russia. And I think Moni and his setting and just that extra dimension that he brings really is a testament to that. Now, I know a lot of people are expecting me to put him in the ultra tier, but I still think it's a little bit too early for that. I think he's absolutely elite, but he's still a little too young for me to be amongst the creme de la creme of setters in this game. So I'm going to be putting Moni in the super tier, and you bet your ass that I have no doubt the next time I do a list like this, Moni will be in that top tier. Now, from a rookie in the Russian league to the winner of the Russian league, Pavel Pankov is a guy I love to watch. This dude, I think, is one of the biggest competitors in volleyball. He just has this edge to him when he plays that I love. And, he sets a very aggressive style. He loves running that offense. He tries to push it fast. And I honestly think he does a pretty clean job of running the offense. But at the end of the day, this is a guy who would run through the wall to win and has the leadership capabilities that make sure his team follows him all the way through. And this is what we've seen time and time again with Dynamo Moscow. It really is too bad that Russia doesn't play internationally, because I think this is a guy who we would see as one of the top setters in the world if he ever played outside of Russia. And because of that, I'm putting Pavel Pankov of Dynamo Moscow in the super tier. And now this next guy has come a long way from being the kid who was just absolutely drowning in his Modena jersey when he was Mike Christensen's backup. But I honestly think Paulo Porro is one of the best pure setters in volleyball. This is a guy who grew up in a volleyball family, and he feels the game in his bloodstream. Like, his heartbeat is the heartbeat of the game. He has fantastic hands that just allows him to shoot the ball into the offensive zones of his hitters. And that's why we've seen Simone still be incredibly effective offensively at 38 years old. And partly it's because of Porro and the offense that he runs. And he's a guy that, despite being undersized, can block and can serve. But ultimately, he just runs a great and really good, clean offense. I love watching Porro set. I think he's absolutely elite. And honestly, low key, I think he's one of the best setters in the Italian league. No doubt about it. And I know a lot of people in the Discord agree with me. So because of that, Paulo Porro is going into the super tier. And from one fantastic setter to another, Matias Sanchez is, he's technically the shortest player in volleyball. Technically, according to the stats, he is 2 centimeters shorter than Sakita. And to be basically 5'8" or 173 centimeters, you have to be very, very good. And that's exactly what Matias Sanchez is. He hides his sets so well and is able to just shoot them into the zone with precision that almost no one in volleyball can match. This is a guy who is creative and is an absolute magician and just keeps middle blockers on skates. I love watching Matias Sanchez set, not only because he's a great setter, but also because he spreads the ball around like peanut butter. This is a guy who lets everyone get swings and really just runs a balanced offense while understanding how to really put his hitters in the best situation and just give them one-on-ones all day long. This is a guy who would be considered one of the best setters in the world, no doubt about it, if he was taller. And just because of the pure magic of it all, I'm putting Sanchez in the super tier as well. Now, Riccardo Sperolei is a little different than the other guys that we've just talked about. He is not as magical as Porro or Sanchez. He's not a generational talent like Moni. But what Riccardo Sperolei does is he does the little things and the basic things at such a high level. He takes care of the details and he executes time in and time out. And this is why, despite not being a starter on the national team level, this is a guy who's won Scudettos, who's won Champions Leagues with Trentino, because he just executes at such a high level and he's so dependable. You know that he is a leader. Doesn't matter if he's on the Italian team and coming in off the bench, when he's allowed to come in off the bench, or when he's leading the way for Trentino. And we really saw that a couple of years ago when he got injured in the playoffs, and all of a sudden Trentino just was not the same team. So because of that, I think Sperolei is honestly one of the more underrated setters in the world because we don't really see him get to play internationally all that much. So I am also putting Sperolei in the super tier. And now I talked about pure setters for a little bit there, and now we get to basically the best pure setter. I don't think there's another player in volleyball who saw their stock rise as much as they did in 2025 by not playing. Right? By not playing, everyone realized how important Masahiro Sakita was to the Japanese national team. And this is a guy who runs their offense with pinpoint accuracy, who keeps it going so fast to keep other teams' blockers on skates. And he is the heartbeat of the Japanese national team, right? They look lost without him at the World Championships last year. And I know Japanese fans are so excited to have him back. But to me, whenever I see lists in the Discord without Sakita, I always question it, because to me, Sakita is the best pure setter in the game, bar none. Obviously, there's a little bit of physical capabilities there. He's listed at 175, or basically like 5'8" on the roster. I don't know how accurate that is, but that's what he's listed as. And obviously, with that comes some problems in a sport like volleyball, but still, to me, Sakita, hands down, one of the best setters in the world, and I'm going to be putting him in the super tier. Now, if you are just a fan of international volleyball and don't really follow the pro scene, you may not know this next guy, because Miguel Tvaris of Portugal, doesn't really get the opportunity to play internationally all that much, right? They don't play in the VNL. They're not really there for the World Championships, or, they just barely get past the first round, mostly because of this guy. But Miguel Tvaris, honestly, is one of the best athletes we have in the setting position. He's one of the best servers that we have in the setting position. And the way he has progressed over the past few years for Frata Zawiercie has been so impressive. When he is on, they have run one of the best offenses in volleyball. Their side-out offense is crazy good because he's just able to deliver that ball super well. And there's a reason why they have now gone to back-to-back Plusliga finals, and they're potentially on the doorstep of making their second straight Champions League finals as well. And I honestly think it's because of the offense that Miguel Tvaris runs for Zawiercie. Zawiercie isn't a team that has a lot of superstar hitters all around. They've got very good hitters in every single position, but Tvaris is really the straw that stirs the drink for Zawiercie. And if he was playing for a national team that got a little bit more exposure on the international level, people would know a lot more about him. So Tvaris is going to go into the super tier. Now, we've just had an incredible run of setters, and that's going to come to an abrupt halt with Cuba's Christian Thondike. And I don't know what it is about Cuba, but they just really struggle at developing setters, right? Cuba's always been known as a very physical country, and you could make arguments that if they were able to keep all of their players in the 2010s, they would have been one of the best teams in the world. And Thondike is a guy who, when he came in, I thought he was really going to lift the level of the team. And when he's good, he can be pretty good, but his location is incredibly inconsistent. He is all over the place with the way he runs that offense, and he gets into like a one-dimensional mindset sometimes and just starts setting the ball to the outside. And to be honest, unfortunately, although this comes to no surprise to anyone in the Volleyball Source universe, we're putting Thondike in the thanks for participating tier. Next up, we have Johannes Thiele, and he is another guy who I think is extremely underrated. And I honestly think he's elite because I have seen him put blockers on skates time and time again. He knows how to hide the ball so well, and he gets that separation for his blockers all day long. And honestly, the way he sets is very un-German. He runs a very creative offense, and it just helps open things up for teams. And I honestly think he is one of the big reasons Olsztyn had such a good year in the Plusliga this season. And because of that, I'm putting Thiele in the hyper tier. Now we have 20-year-old Amir Tsiziuelu, or ATO, as I like to call him. And honestly, he was one of my biggest surprises of the year. He was supposed to go to Norwich Czestochowa, but instead there was a swap between him and Deco, and he went to Modena and ended up leading one of the best offenses in the Lega Volley. And all of this at only 20 years old. And he is a big body. He's 202 centimeters or 6'7", and that physicality comes along with the ability to deliver the ball very technically well, and he's really starting to understand how to run an offense. And the progression I've seen from him from the VNL last summer to the end of the season now in the playoffs with Modena is crazy. And I really don't like making comparisons, but the only comparison I can make with this guy to get you to understand how I think exceptional he's going to be is he's basically a French Simone Gianelli. He has the same build and runs the offense in the same way. You can tell he's really smart, and just as 20 years old, he's really starting to pick it up. And already I think there's going to be very interesting setter battles in the future between him and Moni, just being two of the young guys on the block. And I'm really interested to see that goes down. But after the season Amir Tsiziuelu had this year with Modena, I'm putting him in the hyper tier. Honestly, it's been a while since we've seen a really elite Serbian setter. You can maybe go back to Grbic at the beginning of 2000s. And unfortunately, I don't think Vuk Todorovic is really that guy. And now Serbians, very similar to Cubans, play a very aggressive offensive style of volleyball. They like to set the ball high and swing away at it. And because of that, they're really more known for their power more so than their finesse. And I really think we see that in the way that Todorovic runs an offense. It's just very simple, high balls to the outside. And I think he kind of struggles when he has to run anything in tempo, really lacks any type of feel for the offense, and really lacks that elite location that we're expecting at setters at this level. So for me, Todorovic is going to go into the thanks for participating tier. As we're closing it out now, we've got another guy who has retired from his national team here. But man, Ben Toniutti is one of the OGs for that French system. He is another undersized guy who is an incredibly big competitor. He's won the Champions League, he's won Olympic gold medals, and even what he did this year with JSW was really impressive. Without really having too many options around him, he still set this team to the playoffs, and they looked way better than I thought they would be, mainly because of how Toniutti sets. And he has such good accuracy. He's got such nice hands, and he knows just how to set an offense. He understands what his team needs, match in and match out, and understands the flow of the game. And you know what? Despite being a little bit older, despite being undersized, he's still playing at an incredibly high level. So I'm putting Toniutti in the hyper tier. Second last guy out here, we have Joe Worsley of Gdansk. And Joe, I mean, everyone knows him for being an internet volleyball sensation with out of system, but I honestly think Joe Worsley is a very, very good setter. He's another guy who just really understands the game, right? He's a coach's son. He's been around the game for a long time, and he understands how to run an offense and understands just how to play volleyball. He's got really good hands. He can run tempo really, really well. But I will say I was just a little bit disappointed by his Gdansk team this year. I was expecting them to make the playoffs and be in the run of things, and they just fell just on the outside. So because of that, unfortunately, I honestly usually think I would put Joe higher, but because of that, I'm going to put Joe Worsley in the mega tier. Once again, all of these guys are elite, but I've got to rank them somehow. And finally, the last guy on this list is Turkey's Murat Yeni Pazar. And I honestly think Yeni Pazar is very, very underrated. And I think that is going to change this year once the Champions League Final Four comes around. Because if him and his Zerop Bank team can make a big splash, people are going to start to notice him some more. And I think Yeni Pazar is just a guy who makes really solid decisions. He knows how to be that centerpiece where there's a lot of egos around him and just deliver the ball. Right now, he's sitting on a team with Fornal, Klevno, and Namir. Namir is usually a guy who loves demanding the ball, and yet he's been able to share it between the three of them and still find ways to run the middle, especially the way they dismantled Trentino in the Champions League in pool play. And this was before Micheletto got injured. I honestly think Yeni Pazar is very underrated. So I'm putting Yeni Pazar, the last guy on our list here, in the hyper tier beside Benjamin Toniutti. And that wraps things up for my best setters tier list. What do you think? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let me know down in the chat. And as always, I've left the link for the tier list maker down below, so you can go and do it yourself. If you think I'm missing players in this list, which I'm almost certainly am, let me know in the chat as well. As always, come and join us over at the Volleyball Source Discord, the best online volleyball community in the world. And I'll see you next time.